Definitely today. All right, welcome to Pandora's Awareness Podcast, a place where we collect stories and circulate life-changing wisdom. I am your host, Asher, and our guest today is AK Dozanti. Did I say that properly?
Yes, you did.
I did. And we got back for the second time, Nikki. I'm not even gonna say your last name.
Ganjami.
Nikki. Ganjami. Ganjami. You know, like in Jamaica, we say ganja. You do say
Ah,
Ganjami? Ganjami. Yeah.
Ganjami.
Okay.
Mhm.
Nikki Ganjami and AK Dasanti. Well, ladies, I would let you take the floor and share a little bit about you and what you do, what you specialize in, and we can get the conversation because today's conversation around fear. That's the theme of today's Wednesday. It's about fear, and we get to hear about some of the fearful moments that Nikki and AK get to share with us. Starting with you, AK, tell us a little bit about you.
Oh, just the highlights or, the
Or the
nutshell
lowlights, the
version.
lowlights.
I
We can
am,
take lowlights
well,
too.
we can share some lowlights. Um, so I was in law enforcement for quite a few years. I started my career really young and I had a really successful run while I was in. And I had a lot of opportunities. And in 2015, I went from being Officer of the Year to a full blown burnout. I was experiencing depression, PTSD, adrenal fatigue, and even suicidal ideation. And so I had to leave the job. It was either me or the job. And I thought, I've got my entire life ahead of me, hopefully, and
Mhm.
I need to make that happen. I need to keep my life ahead of me, right? So I pivoted and became a criminal court victim advocate and looked for ways to heal myself. And in doing so, I realized that there's a lot of other law enforcement officers that need and first responders that need the knowledge that I was gaining. I went back and got my master's in victimology and learned about trauma and all kinds of different modalities for healing the body and the mind. And so I created Lifesaver Wellness, and now I coach individuals and train at agencies and have different programs and whatnot. So that's the nutshell version.
Well, thank you for high leveling for us a little bit. Appreciate you, AK, for sharing. And of course, we gotta get to Nikki, if you don't mind. It's not your first time, but somebody might hear you for the first time. Tell us a bit about you.
True. Okay, thank you. Well, like AK, I've made several pivots in my life, starting out actress. That was always my dream, something that I went after for about a minute after college before giving up on myself because I didn't think I had what it took. A lot of head trash. I pivoted into other people's dream of me being an elementary school teacher, where I performed the role for 15 years unhappily
Mhm.
before having an early midlife crisis at the age of 40 and realizing I was going to take my life back, start all over again, resigned from that job, and I've got my coaching business today where I love helping people to go after the dreams that they have and live their purpose.
Wow. Well, congratulations to both of you for, taking on your journey full force and, get that life that's ahead of you within you a little bit more. So thank you guys for sharing so much. And then we're going to talk about what we're here to talk about, which is fear. And oftentimes we don't understand how much fear is a blessing to us because I think whenever time you occupy the state of fear, sometimes you really come alive. For me personally, because when I've been in the military, some of my most fearful situations when I was really feel like I was in my body, I was present, I was there, and I really appreciate fear in different aspects of my life. But sometimes fear causes other negative things that happens in your life too. So we get to talk about both some empowerment and disempowerment around fear. And if we would start with AK, if you don't mind giving us your little, start into your journey, like some of the fears, the things that you feared, or maybe you used to fear, or you currently fear, however you want to start off your journey.
I thought about this in like the macro, because I've had a lot of instances in my life, especially in law enforcement, because I'm all of 5'2". So I've had a lot of
That's
instances
very
of
tall. That's very tall.
short, yes, I stand at a very high height. So I had a lot of instances where I had small bursts of fear that I had to overcome. But in the macro, I thought about, how fears change over time. And when I was young, I had a fear of not being seen, not being
Mm.
acknowledged, not being validated. I was an only child. I grew up out in the middle of nowhere. And in my adult life, I as a law enforcement officer, you're definitely seen. You're definitely heard and acknowledged. Maybe not validated, but you're noticed, right? And you kind of have all eyes on you at some point. And my fears, the pendulum swung, I don't know how you want to say that, but the pendulum went all the way the other way. And I became afraid of being seen. And so I kind of I started to, retract and try to make myself smaller and hide a little bit. And ironically, I ended up with a medium-sized TikTok following, about like 55,000 people. And so I'm being seen now. And I've really had to overcome and push that envelope on allowing myself to be seen, even though early in life that's all I ever wanted. So I was thinking about it a lot today in the macro of how things can evolve, and you can come through the fear of what you originally wanted, or didn't want, and then it can go too far and kind of boomerang back on you.
Mm. And you shaking your head, Nikki. What's going on in your head over there? What's going on in your
I'm
mind?
just thinking how aligned we are that you have the both of us on today, because my story around fear is very similar to AK.
Mm. Tie those together for us, please. Let me hear you.
Mine was around fear of being heard,
Mm.
basically. And I remember in first grade, I used to be in Catholic school before moving into public school. And I told on a friend, I told my sister Josephine what a friend said about her and this other teacher, that they were a bunch of dogs. And that was a big mistake, because the father of that girl was very unhappy with me and told my mother that I need to wear a muzzle. And we make decisions in life. And my decision in that moment is that it's not safe to speak up, that it's bad to speak up.
Mm.
And so I didn't. And then years later in middle school, I was in chorus. And I too, I actually used to pray to not grow above 5'2" because I wanted to be real small. So I was on the first riser in chorus in eighth grade or seventh or eighth grade. And the kids, but the behind me, the girls, they were like hitting me in the back and punching me in the head and kneeing me. And I couldn't take it anymore. So I got up and I went over to the teacher playing on the piano, and I banged my hand on the piano and said, I can't take it anymore. And it was like silence amongst 125 seventh graders. And then it became whispers. And then it got louder. And then there was laughter. And in that moment, I decided it wasn't safe to be heard or seen. And so I really minimized myself and got comfortable sitting on the sidelines to not stand out. So fast forward years later and going into the online coaching space, and I'm hearing, you got to go live, you got to do these videos. I'm like, what? And risk being judged and criticized.
Mm.
So I did overcome that fear. I'm very visible. But yeah, it's interesting how the decisions we make when we're little impact us decades later.
Wow. Oh my God. I gotta go ahead and I gotta make my 2 cents here too because I'm listening and it's interesting because I was talking to another lady a couple weeks back and we was talking about fear and I was like I'm not afraid of this stuff but then when we start talking and it happens that I went all the way back to my younger self and that's the person that was afraid but that person was being present in that moment when I'm experiencing those kind of fear. I'm like, oh my God. So Asher at 42 or I mean 44 is not afraid, but in that situation, the younger version of myself that experienced that thing for the first time is afraid and he's showing up. You know what I'm saying? I know, like, okay, I gotta deal with that guy. Not really the situation, but that guy that's afraid because his emotion is very high compared to what I'm experiencing right now. So it's interesting that we would talk about fear oftentimes is not the current version of ourselves that's afraid, it's that child in us that's still afraid. And how do you have a conversation with that younger self of you to really get that person to have more confidence now? And I'm curious about you guys. How do you guys web or tie together your youth or your younger version yourself, to face the thing that you shouldn't be afraid of, but you're still afraid of? I would start with AK because you got your head to the side, like you're listening with one ear.
It's just it, it's so interesting because when I work with clients that come to me, and most of them are first responders, and they think that a lot of their issues come from the job, and it doesn't take very long to figure out that most of the time, the things that we wrestle with are things that were imprinted in our system when we were young.
Mm-hmm.
And they've now just manifested or amplified, and so you have to be able to go back and recognize, and it's not always, just one particular event, but it's amazing that you've been able to identify that, Nikki. And sometimes it's just little things of how you've been conditioned over time to be, kind of told in a roundabout way that, maybe your voice doesn't matter, or, there's no value in what you're saying, or whatever the case may be. Um, but so often we have to go back and figure out, what did that version of me, that 12-year-old version or that 8-year-old version, what did they need to hear? What needed to happen for them to be able to feel safe in that moment? And I know it feels like it could be an exaggeration to say safe, but it really just means, just regulated and supported is probably the best way to put that. And you just have to kind of tap into that and ask yourself, okay, in that moment, what would have helped me to not feel like I needed to melt into the walls and be invisible? What would have helped me to feel supported and able to bloom in that moment and say, no, this is my truth, and that needs to be accepted.
Mm.
So it's kind of a vague way to put it, but
No, yeah, no, but the,
it's
the big question that's showing up right now is like, who is afraid? And you gotta act like, who's
right.
afraid right now? Is it me or is it the other guy that I kind of left behind in the past, but he's showing up every time I experience this kind of feel like, who's afraid? And sometimes, I mean, like me personally, some situation I've been in, and I was like, oh man, I'm afraid, but I love this adrenaline thing. My body's ready to do it, but something in me that's like hesitating. I'm like, well, who is afraid right now? Like who is afraid? Is it me or is it my inner child? And oftentimes it's my inner child afraid. So what are your thoughts there, Nikki?
Oh, I love this. That's a great question. Who is afraid? It's a great question to ask. It's something that I'll ask clients and even myself around beliefs. When I hear a limiting belief, whether it's from me or a client, I'll say, "Well, whose belief is that anyway? Whose
Mm,
voice is it?" And sometimes it sounds like us, but oftentimes it sounds like somebody else, whether it's a parent or a teacher or a peer. So that's a good first step, is to identify, who is afraid and whose belief is it.
mm,
And similar to what AK is saying, a lot of times I'll just go back and what was the positive lesson or learning that was available in the obstacle? Because there's almost always an opportunity. And when we can learn what is that learning that's going to help us to be more resourceful today, then the any soft trauma around it or hurt will oftentimes just collapse because you got the learning that's going to help you today. So that's one thing that I'll do. And I heard AK say the word tap. I'll use the tool of tapping, EFT, and
mm.
that helps also to settle any emotion. You're shaking here, you must know what it is. Yeah, to calm down the nervous system around the
Tap.
event and
You said
neutralize
tap,
it.
tap.
Tapping, yeah, it's like acupressure for your emotion. So you tap on the meridians of the face and the body. And as you tap on those
Hmm.
meridians, you help to process the emotion and also change your beliefs and the way you're looking at it.
Mm,
So it helps to neutralize situations that would trigger high emotion. It helps to neutralize that and process it. So you could kind of look back at it, you remember it, but you're not triggered by it while you
mm.
think about it.
Okay, so since we're sticking on the theme fear today, so I have this big question for both of you guys. And I would love to know, what is your relationship like with fear right now, currently in your powerful state right now? What's your relationship like with fear? Who wants to go first?
Well, I think today I've been leaning into it, which
Mm,
is different from how I used to operate. Just lean into it and approach it from a place of curiosity. Like, interesting. I notice I'm feeling some fear. I'm curious, what's that about?
mm.
And just instead of pushing it away, which doesn't just, what we resist persists. So I find that leaning into it, getting curious, taking some deep breaths helps to calm down the nervous system. And then you can look at it from a different perspective.
What's one of your recent fear that you've experienced recently that you're like, oh my God, that one caught me off guard, or that was so much fun after I share? What's one of your recent fear?
Well, a very recent fear is my business coach is pushing me. I shouldn't say the word pushing, but she's guiding me to raise my prices. And that it can be scary. You get into a lot of
Mm,
scarcity, or not you, but me,
mm,
and
mm-hmm,
probably other people.
mm-hmm.
So that is the most present for me. So again, I'm leaning into it and just getting curious about it and trying different numbers on to see how does that feel. And yeah, that's the most recent.
I'm a poke. So what are you afraid of when it comes to elevating your numbers?
Less people saying yes.
Mm,
So there's the scarcity. Less people
mm,
saying yes, that's less clients. So,
mm.
but I know it's not real. I know it's a fear, so that's why I'm in that place of just leaning in right now. It's literally like as it's today, it's discussed today on my coaching call. So it's fresh new fear.
Fresh new fear.
Yes.
There's a story I was listening to, because Earl Nightingale, he's like one of my hero. And I happen to know his wife too. Her name is Diana Nightingale. She's still alive too. Sometimes we have a conversation. But I would listen to one of his story was talking about, I think during the Depression, there was this guy who was selling houses. And for some reason at the time, he just saying that, you know what, I'm only gonna focus on houses at this price. And for some reason, when he started advertising for houses at this price, he was thinking like, well, we're in a depression right now. A lot of people have money to buy houses. But what happened for him was that only people that was interested in the house for that price started showing up to his office. And he started finding, he was like, oh my God, I can't believe, because no, like, okay, this guy's only offering this kind of houses. Well, let me go talk to him. He must be an expert or something because he's doing this, whatever. But it was interesting when they explained, it was like, yeah, because he was trying to catch everybody because he was thinking about, oh, no folks can afford houses. But then there was people that was like, I'm only looking for this kind of house. That's much I'm gonna buy my house for. And this person was the only one that was saying, hey, I'm only specialized in these kind of houses. And he was able to get a lot of clients. So that's kind of changed my mind too when I was thinking about certain times you're trying to do stuff to filter people out. You might be filtering the right kind of people that you need to be based on your price, based on your numbers. That's my thought that showed up. What are you thinking about AK? You got the head shaking over there too.
Just thinking about how interesting it seems like Nikki and I we're coming to the same place, but from different sides of it. Because I used to chase the fear. I used to just try to like blast through that wall of fear and get like what you were talking about, Asher, the excitement, the rush from it, the adrenaline and the cortisol and feeling alive. That's how our bodies are designed. I used to chase that feeling. And now that I've come back down to a place of regulating my nervous system, I'm finding that I have a much softer approach to the fear, and I'm approaching it a little more cautiously and maybe a little more strategically, and
Mhm,
noticing the nuances and feeling the uncomfortable feelings in my body and saying, okay, where is this taking me? What's the what kind of fire is this building up inside of me and where am I supposed to go with it? So it's interesting that, we're both leaning in, but
mhm,
from opposite sides. And right now, I think that's my newest approach is instead of just blasting into it, is let's just, take it at a nice, easy pace and see what happens.
Well, same question for you then. Recent fear that you had to process.
I would say uh revealing projects that I've been working on for a long time. I'm noticing a fear of telling people that I'm even working on certain things because I don't want to sabotage. I don't
Mm.
want to say what I'm doing, get the little dopamine hit and the acknowledgement from that and allow that to be I don't want to be satiated by it just yet. I want to wait and continue the grind, and then once it's ready, then reveal it. Because I find that, if you announce things as you go, sometimes you get satisfied just by sharing those parts, and you lose steam because you're focusing on letting everybody know versus just staying on the grind and getting it finished.
That's very interesting.
Mhm.
Because I hear both things from some people like don't tell nobody until it's there, and I'm hearing people like start sharing so people could. So I'm hearing sometimes I'm hearing both angles from people like saying sometimes the thing you're working on share it because you might find somebody that help you build it and grow it, and then sometimes I hear don't share it because somebody might put the fire out. So it's like so there's fear in both places, but I think there's an advantage in both too because me personally I like to share stuff because I'm always thinking about teamwork. Like I'm a teamwork kind of person, so I'm always looking for somebody to help me, go take down this hill or build this mountain, whatever you want to call it. So I'm always looking for people. So I'm always sharing. Like I'm a sharer. Some people already call them simplifier, and some people are multiplier. I'm a multiplier. I like to share stuff, and then I find people to help me simplify it. So I don't know how you guys brain work, but are you a person that share up front, or you wait till it's done before you share, Nikki?
Typically, I've been somebody to share. I get very excited and then I
Mm.
want to share that. Recently, though, I'm noticing that people in my life are a little too comfortable with giving unwarranted advice. And so I open myself up to hearing opinions I didn't ask for. And I let them impact me. And I know that
Mm.
that's on me. So
Mm.
recently I've made the decision, you know, with multiple areas of life to just keep things to myself, except for maybe my coach or an accountability partner, but just keep them to myself until I have the result that I want because I'm not open to advice. So that's something new that, and it's hard because I want to tell people.
Mm. You made me think about. I think it's a like a little test called a Kolbe test. Have you guys heard about it? It's Kolbe Kolbe test. But it kind of breaks down to tell you if you're like a quick start person, you're a fact finder, if you will follow through, so forth and so on. I think there's like 4 areas. I forget the fourth one. But when I take it, I realize I'm a quick starter. I'm a person who will jump out of the plane with no shoot and trying to figure the shoot on the way down, or like jump into things about the facts. And once I get in, I start figure out the stuff, right? So I'm a person that really jump start, quick start stuff, right? And I realized that when it comes to things, I'm a starter, but I'm not the fourth quarter guy. I'm not the finisher. And I need to find people to surround myself that are finishers. And it makes me when I find something I like, oh, I got to share it because I'm looking for people to help me finish it. Because I got a little bit of follow through, I got a good numbers in follow through, but when it comes to finishing, like fact finding the other piece, I'm not there. So I always trying to find people to help me kind of like support that with their unique ability to kind of help me support that piece of it. I'm not sure if you think yourself as a finisher or a starter or a fact finder or a follow through, how you see yourself there, there, Nikki?
Definitely a quick starter. I do like to jump on ideas. I
Mm.
mean, even my decision to resign from my teaching job, I left when there was no evidence on paper that this is a smart decision. I just said things will work out because I have this calm feeling in my solar plexus. So I would say I'm definitely a starter. When something's important to me, I finish it. When I start because it was somebody else's idea, I've done a lot of collaborations with people and it wasn't something that I necessarily wanted to do, but I felt bad. So I did it. I might have let things, not finish.
Mm,
And that's just the awareness is just say yes to what's a yes for you, and what isn't, it's got to be a no, no matter how hard it is to say, because you
ooh.
want to honor the other person's time, right?
And this is an area that I'm really like focused on for the last 2 years. Is really become a person that finished what I started. Because I was in a place where I had a lot of teamwork. So that means there's a lot of people that help me get the thing across the line, right? And you're used to getting into things, right, at the team around you, and then this other person take care of this. You know what I'm saying? So a different person play a different role. But then I found out in my personal life, I wasn't I was using that same thinking, but I didn't have the kind of support that I needed to finish certain things. So I'm learning that process right now. So I'm training myself, like I gotta finish what I started. And being by myself, I gotta do that too a lot. So when I'm thinking teamwork, I can get the help to do it. But over there on your side, AK, are you a person that definitely finished what you started? Are you a quick starter? Are you a person follow through, fact finder? What are your thoughts?
I think it depends on the project. I definitely, like Nikki, I left full-time law enforcement without a plan. And then when I left, I left my advocacy position without a plan. And so I get these ideas, but I'm able to really listen to my own discernment and have faith that it will work out. But I I also have raging ADHD, like legitimately diagnosed ADHD. And so I get easily distracted. And so I come up with all these amazing ideas, but then to actually bring it all the way across the finish line can be really difficult. And I think that's why I've in the past been a sharer, and I've started not to because it serves as a distraction, and distractions destroy actions. So I cannot let myself get distracted by telling everybody I have to just get it across the finish line. So
Mm.
it depends on the project. If it gives me enough dopamine, I'm all in. But, like Nikki said, if it's something that is if my heart's not in it, then my brain's not going to be able to follow.
Mm. You said raging ADHD.
Yes,
Oh,
seriously.
oh, so I got symptoms too. But something we're gonna talk about it for a little bit of AK. I hope you don't mind jumping in here, Nikki, a little bit. But I've been studying me. Like I've been spending for the last 10 years, I've been spending studying Asher because I realized that there's a lot of things I've experienced that I need to look back at and increase the value of it. And part of that is a lot of new experiences I've had. So I'm a person that have a lot of ideas too, like you. I did raging HD. I got raging ideas, a lot of them. But I realized something about the ADHD brain for me personally. I realized that I process information way faster than most people, right? My brain cycles through information way faster than most people. It's just that I need help organizing them. So what I realized about my brain, because I'm also have the symptom of dyslexia too. So when I'm looking at things, I'm not tracing things linearly. It's more web version, so I can connect dots and things. So I'm looking at a problem, looking at a situation, I can see solutions right away. Like I can see a lot of solution. But then how do I transfer or translate that solution to other people for them to follow? And I realized that my brain is not designed for linearly. So when I'm looking at things, and I might see the 10 step of it, but somebody might look for step one, which I already see step one, but I don't have it in arranged in a linear format. And I need people like, oh, actually, that's step one. So when we was talking, I was like, okay, we got the same kind of brain similarly because I love I love my energy and I love finding new ideas because I see solution all the time. But it's a matter of how do I organize them? How do I get to them? And now I'm learning,
Mhm.
oh, Asher works. How do I get to finish what I've started? How do I get people to sign into my ideas? Because I realize not a lot of people have a lot of ideas like I do. Because I'm recognizing, I'm like, oh, you don't see it. Like, they're like, I don't. I'm like, man, I got ideas how to do this already. But they don't. And they was like, okay, we gotta get together and share what I have. That's why we gotta be sharers. I think I gotta share because I'm put on this planet to share what shows up, and some people put on this planet to take this idea I share and take it somewhere else, right? That's how I look at it. What are your thoughts? I'm
You want to
gonna jump
share
with you.
AK?
Oh, go
No,
ahead,
no, I
Nikki.
was
Go
going
ahead.
to say, do you want to share AK? Because I know you two, realizing you have similar brains.
Yeah,
Go
AK.
ahead.
What are your thoughts?
Oh,
Well, go ahead.
well, I definitely like you. My brain goes when I'm and you can see sometimes I stutter because my my brain is going 10 times as fast as my mouth can go. So I have all these thoughts and these things and directions that I want to go, and I have a hard time filtering it down.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yes, and I often say that I don't know if you remember in the 90s that we had these contraptions where they would put you in almost like an old style phone booth, but it had fans and you had to try to catch the money. Do you remember those? Like
I
it
didn't grow
was
up in the
just
US. Maybe
I
Nikki
think
can
I
tell me.
oh,
think
well that
I've seen it. I haven't
it
been in one.
it was a long time ago, but it was the money would just be blowing around and you're in this glass box and you're trying to catch it. And that's what
Mm.
my brain feels like is, I have all these amazing ideas and they're all valuable and I can't just grab on to any of them, so they're fleeting and I have to keep notebooks all over to write everything
Yeah.
down. But um no, and I think that there are times where it's important to share so that you can collaborate. And I love that you're um very open in that because that takes courage. Not, I mean, sometimes people don't share just out of fear. That's what
Mm-hmm.
we're here to talk about, just out of fear that somebody's going to say that's a dumb idea. And so being willing to just put all of your ideas out there and share everything, um, it takes a lot of courage and it takes a lot of security to know who you are and to say, well, if you don't like my idea, that's no big deal. I got 15 other ones. So I don't know. Those are my thoughts on it.
It's interesting you said somebody might think it's a dumb idea because I used to get that a lot. But then I realized what the problem was. The problem was how I explain it, my translation of it.
Mm.
And that's when I started my journey of really doing a lot of reading. So I've been on this journey of doing a lot of reading and stuff to find language because I realized my problem was the language to communicate the ideas that I have. And then once I start discovering how to communicate my ideas, I'm like, oh, I was made for this. I was made for this because I know people. I was sitting in the room, people they have no idea. I'm like, what I do, you know? But because I was not sharing, it was like, oh, nobody got in there. Well, I do have ideas. I just didn't want to talk about them. But now I'm meant to share stuff. So now I take on that empowerment of sharing stuff. And now I got words to go with it because, we was thinking about the thought, like the brain. You was talking about writing down a lot of stuff, notepad, so forth and so on. I do a lot of that now because I realize the power in taking those thoughts that are like floating by like the clouds, and I just write them down. And from there, I get to focus on those thoughts because the mind is like the sky, and your thoughts are like the clouds. They just floating by, right? Whatever you want to call them, and you just get to figure out which one you want to chase. I'm like, I want to focus on that cloud now. Put it on paper, and now I get to focus on it because now I get to put some power behind that one thought. But I had to learn that stuff about me. What are you smiling about, Nikki? What
I'm
was it? What are you thinking about over
sorry.
there?
I don't know if
Huh?
you heard that, but as soon as you said the word sky, there was a loud thunder boom. It's like the timing was amazing. And you're talking about clouds. It's pouring here and
Oh,
thunder. Yeah.
oh, wow.
I write a lot of things down too. So I get a lot of inspired ideas and then I'll forget them. So I write
Mm-hmm.
them down to capture them. And I'm the opposite of both of you. I take a little bit to process. I've got to like think, and because I'm a very literal person, so
Mm-hmm.
I take it literally and then I have to think what the person probably means. So I take a little bit of time, which can be frustrating to people who are just like really fast. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm aware of that. But
We might need Nikki on the team, man.
it's good to know your strengths and surround and work with people who have other strengths. So together you can be a strong team.
Mm. When you was talking about you gotta think, I think I was listening to a story about the guy was like, he lost his horse, and it was like, well, you lost your horse, where you gonna look for your horse at? And it was like, okay, um, he went. So what the guy did was he went out and found his horse and came out. And it was like, oh my God, how do you find your horse? And it was like, well, first I said it was like, if I was a horse, where would I go? And then he was like, "Oh, I would go here." So he went there, and then when he got there, the horse was there. So like, okay, I found my horse. So he was talking about you just sit here and think. I imagine you like, okay, if I was this, what would I do? And then you go there and so forth and so on. So that's what I was showing for me when he was talking just now, Nikki,
That's
about how
very
your mind work.
logical. Yeah, that's a lot more. Thank you for giving me that credit. That's a lot more logical than how my brain thinks.
Yeah, me and AK, we got thoughts like one on there, one over there, one over there. We
Oh
gotta
yeah.
keep.
Oh yeah, my
Well,
thoughts are like that too. They're just slower to process.
Mm,
Hmm.
well, no, I love what you just said though, Asher. You know, if I was a horse, where would I go? And
hmm
you really have to think that way when you're trying to implement change. And I think it helps you to overcome your fear. If you think about, you know, if I have a goal, say I'm not a coach yet, and I have a goal of becoming a coach, well, I have to think about what's the identity of a
hmm
coach? What does a coach do? What are the things that a coach does? How do they show up in this world? How do they maneuver? What do they do for themselves every day? And so you have to kind of put your mind there and then
mm,
let your actions and your behaviors follow. So it's kind of like, you know, the thing you want to become is the horse, and you
hmm
have to just think about what would it take to get there. And then you have a direction, which kind of helps to alleviate the fear of, because it's not quite as unknown as it was before you had a direction.
mm. Interesting thing about fear that I'm working on, because fear ties to confidence too a lot, and a lot of my self-confidence were wrapped up in the little version of myself that was afraid. Then I start realizing when it comes to doing different things now, because like in the military, I was pretty, you can navigate the confidence level because a lot of things you've done before. And how confidence work for me personally is like if you've successfully done something before, automatically you can go back there. That same energy that you success in that same situation, you can move that into that new situation. And it creates a lot more confidence moving to that new situation because oftentimes the fear is in the future. Um, for that new thing you get to do. So I've started looking back at my own story, like, okay, all right, I'm doing something new now. What have I done similar to this that I've done successfully? And can I use that same energy, move into this new space and be able to create something from there? And I start recognizing how much that eliminates the fear because I'm using past confidence versus future fear to occupy that space for that new thing. And now based on that, I can actually do something even more empowering. Is that, do you guys do that with, you work on your stuff this that same way or not? Uh,
Yeah, I,
AK?
I like that, what you just said about past confidence and staying out of the future fear.
Mm,
Hmm.
okay.
That reminds me of I don't know if you're familiar with David Goggins, but he wrote a book called Can't Hurt Me.
Yeah.
And he
Hmm
talks about the cookie jar, you know, and he's when he's in a moment where he needs that extra little fire, that extra confidence, he reaches back into the cookie jar and he remembers, okay, what's something that I thought that I couldn't overcome, but I did. And so he pulls that into the now. And so, yeah, that's exactly essentially what you're doing too. And I love that. Makes so much sense. It kind of transcends the moment, if that makes sense.
And here's the thing about the theme we're talking about fear today, because fear ties into confidence, and at the end of the day, when fear shows up, it robs us of our confidence. When fear goes away, we gain back our confidence. And I think our only job in life, I would say, to protect our confidence. And a lot of times, we let fear steal that from us. And I'm here today to talk to everybody. If you listen right now, go ahead and put if you listen to this right now, go ahead and put hashtag replay right in the comment section because I'm going to post this because we didn't get a chance to actually go stream this thing live today because of Zoom. But here we are talking about fear, and on the other side of fear is confidence because that's what most people want, that confidence in themselves or in the thing that they're going to do. And oftentimes fear robs us of that because we don't understand what it is. So how do you protect your confidence, AK? How do you protect yours? Get up there and protect it.
Try to stay away from negative biases, negative influences. Uh, Dr. Amen, who's an ADHD guru, talks about ants or automatic negative thoughts. So I try to make sure that what I'm filtering into my mind is positive and in the same direction, aligned in the same way that direction that I want to go. Um, because we can really get lost in the weeds if we let too many influences come into our heads. So I try to really just stay focused on what aligns with where I want to go, um,
Mm,
and boost myself up from there and remember that I'm a human, and everybody else that I might be scared of, their judgment or their ridicule, they're only human as well. So
Mm.
I just have to think about the fact that we're all on an equal playing field, in my mind at least. No matter what you've accomplished or where you're going, when you break it all down, we're all just human.
So your filtering system, you filter out negative because those things depreciate your confidence. Excuse me. Sorry. So how you protect your confidence is by shutting out those negative noise, negative voice. That's how you protect your confidence. Okay. And what about you, Nikki? How do you protect your confidence?
Well, similar to AK, I've learned to become a parent to myself. I'm my own child, and I've
Mm,
become protective of myself. So I've had to limit time with certain, people and groups that are more negative. There's a lot of things I won't watch on TV. The news is one of them. I just won't allow the negativity. If there's nothing I'm going to do about it or can do about it, why consume it? So, in that sense, similar to what AK said. And then, as far as confidence, I push myself, leaning into the fear and then pushing myself through it because I know confidence comes with action. So, if I stay in the thinking mode, then the
hmm.
fear is going to live. And if I go from thinking to doing, and then I just look for how can I improve by 1%, what can I learn from this and keep going, that's where the confidence is. And fear can't live
Wow.
there.
Action eliminates fear. Oh my God.
Mhm.
I totally agree with that. But here's something you said, and I think we should talk about this a little bit because I think the folks that are listening, if you're checking this out, you're gonna realize how powerful this is. When Nikki said she cut out the news, something like, I've been on this journey since 2016. I stopped watching the news. I mean, I stopped watching sports. Some people can't do that, but I stopped watching a lot of movies and stuff, right? So all I do is read and listen to books, do some audio stuff, whatever. And I focus on that because I realized that how powerful it was when I started feeding my mind with certain things and certain ideas. And I was like, okay, what are the best place for me to really control what I'm hearing is through the books that I'm reading because the news they would ambush your emotion and emotion disrupt your confidence. So if they're gonna ambush me with these vicarious traumas that they post to share every day, I don't want to hear that stuff. Like I wanna find stuff that's gonna grow me, gonna put down water my soul the proper way, and the news doesn't do that. They ambush you all the time. So when you was talking about just getting that stuff out of the way, oh my God, that's one of my filter system. So I cut that stuff out. What about you, AK?
Oh yeah. I Years ago when I was in law enforcement, I was like, I have enough reality and
Mm,
stress and trauma every single day. I don't need any additional. But I think it's interesting the dots that we're connecting here is that action destroys fear. And I think I said earlier that distractions destroy action.
mm-hmm,
So distraction distraction creates fear. So it's kind of like a triangle. See, this is where
mm.
my ADHD brain comes in, and
The
I
web.
need a notepad.
Yeah. Sketch this out real quick.
But yeah. Right, right, right.
Mm, okay. Mm. So Nikki, you mentioned news, and what else do you filter out?
Other than news, well, certain movies.
Mm,
This past weekend, I was at my parents' house for Easter, and it was my parents and my brother and myself. And we're like, it's Saturday night, let's watch a movie.
mm,
And the movies that they wanted to watch, I said, oh, no, no, I don't like those kinds of movies. Let's find a happy medium because it was like, action and violence. I'm like, I don't want those images in my mind. So it was interesting to see because they choose to watch differently. Um,
mm,
so yeah, I do. I read a lot of books. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I just like to let the good in and things
mm,
that help you to think. So yeah, I do. I filter out a lot.
mm. Interesting enough, where you talk about the movies, and some of us, we trying to find that inner space of health, whatever, and we just pick those mostly traumatic movies and expect not to have those traumas in your life because you're picking stuff that's very traumatic, even though it's a movie, but those images are affecting people. and you're not realizing how they affect you until you're like, oh my God, why my system is in this state? Well, because you're feeding it a lot of vicarious trauma through those movies. You're not realizing it.
That's right. And usually when we're watching TV, we get into that hypnotic state,
Mm,
which your mind is wide open to suggestion. So
mm,
your mind is taking things in. And that's just something I've become conscious of. I'm even more particular with what I watch.
mm.
Yeah.
Wow. This has been another great conversation. We have covered the intricacies of fear between all of our own stories, our own journey, and see how they show up. And oftentimes we don't realize that that inner person, that younger version of yourself really is still there watching and would love to grow up and become a stronger version too. And we gotta have a conversation with that person sometimes. And sometimes we meet a younger version, like a kid. So I notice too when I meet like younger people, I'm like, oh man, my 20-year-old self just popped in here really quick, and we're having a conversation now. And that guy gets to live a little bit of that experience because I'm talking to a younger person. So I start looking at life differently. I'm like, okay, so we need the youth because the younger version of ourselves need to talk to that person. And we need the elders because my future self need to understand what it looks like in the future with that person to relate with. So I kind of appreciate the people that shows up in both spectrum. And you guys heard about that 1/3 rule, right? The 1/3 rule saying that you need to find people that are 1/3 ahead of you they can aspire to.
Mm.
And then 1/3 people that are in the same boat as you get to hang out with and grow with. And the people that 1/3 behind you are the folks that you get to teach and help, travel through life. So if you gotta think about your circle right now, do you have any folks that you look to that help you eliminate your fears that are one in the 1/3 category ahead of you? And folks that are in your circle right now and folks that behind you that comes to mind that you like, oh my God, I get to help those people overcome their fear. Anybody shows up for you right now, Nikki?
Clients, I think clients show up for me to help them.
Mm-hmm.
That's who comes to mind. Colleagues and people I collaborate with are the people who are, the 1/3 that are in the same boat as me, I guess. And then mentors come to mind for those that are that 1/3 ahead that I get to help me to level up.
Mm. You said your client. What kind of clientele base? What are people that you really, trying to help bring forward?
Clients, usually they come to me, what fears,
Mm-hmm.
fear of judgment, fear of criticism, perfectionists, people pleasers, a lot of self-doubt, a lot of procrastination, lack of motivation. It's usually
Mm,
those issues, and then, helping them to eliminate those limiting beliefs and install new empowering ones, helping them to get rid of the negative emotion that doesn't need to live in the body and then resolve the internal conflict. And so
mm.
it's the inner game that I help people with.
Well, thank you so much. That's beautiful, Nikki. I want to come see you. What about you, AK? What are your 1/3? Forward, middle, and back.
Immediately, I was thinking about the forward. I was fortunate enough in my younger years to know my great grandparents, and I still have my grandparents around. And I love to talk to elderly people. They're just there's so much richness and value and wisdom and different perspectives. And so that's like, I have mentors that are just, you know, just a couple steps ahead of me, but that's, who I really focus on. I have lots of people that are kind of in the same boat as me, other coaches, other people that are kind of like paving this way in the first responder world. And then I've got friends that are all aspiring to do their own kind of thing that it all looks different, but we're all making moves in different directions. Um, and the two groups of people that came to mind as the third that are, that I'm kind of bringing up is first responders who aspire to be more regulated and know themselves and do the personal development and grow as a human. Um, and then I thought about my kiddos because I've got an almost 5-year-old and an 8-month-old downstairs right now. And, I think as you were talking just before you started talking about the 1/3 rule, you were talking about talking to the youth and
Mm,
how it pulls you back into those places. And boy, does being a parent
mm,
pull you back into that younger, smaller version of yourself and really make you see the world through fresh eyes again. And so, even though I might be bringing them up, they're pulling me back to a place of being able to see things with a lot more clarity.
mm. The universe is funny, my friend. Like it put us here, man. I'm swear to God, like you're looking through the lens of the 1/3 thing. Is like, like your entire purpose is always to like find those person that in that 1/3 that's behind you that you get to bring forward. Like, hey, because somebody's looking at you, they see themselves in you, and you just gotta make sure that you're creating the kind of connection that they need to move forward. And then the folks that are ahead of you, like, oh my God, I'm looking ahead because I see what's it's gonna look ahead for me, what it's gonna look like through these people's eyes. Okay, that person is my hero going forward. I want to be just like them growing up. When I go forward, and the folks that are with you get to celebrate with them, and like, hey, we've done a lot, and I get to celebrate and feel how it feels like to be in this space. So I appreciate you guys sharing your stories, sharing your journey, and we're gonna wrap up because right now I think we have covered fear and tied into confidence a lot. That folks and I kind of look at their own story, their own journey, and see the positivity and the empowerment that you guys have been embodying based on your own journey. Any final giveaway, final thoughts that you want to share before we close out?
Final thought that comes to mind for me is basically just a recap of looking for the opportunity in the obstacle so that you can learn
Mm,
from it, you can grow from it, take action, and be in that confident state, which is inside of you.
mm. AK-47.
I think just that little connection of the dots there of distractions destroy actions and action destroys fear. And so keep the distractions to the wayside and you'll overcome whatever you're going after. Just stay focused.
Mm. You know what I noticed? This conversation pace was very quiet, very smooth, just very easy to digest. I'm gonna have to go back and listen to this stuff. Like, man, I felt the real connection between you two today. So, you guys have never met before, right?
Never. No,
Never.
No,
we
Okay.
but
have
it
so
was a
much in
pleasure meeting
common.
you. This
It
has
was
been
so nice
awesome.
meeting you. Yeah, this was like it was like serendipity that the three of us are here today.
And I know you guys like me believe in the 6 degree of separation. And I'm a big fan of that concept itself, where you just looking for the right people, the right person, to the right people that will help you change your world. And when I find certain people that I'm like, man, I've been looking for this guy, like my energy just come alive and I can do a lot more. And I love meeting people like that with just charge of my energy. And I had that feeling with you, Nikki. And now, AK, you rubbed me the right way too. So we might have to come back and do this again.
Yeah, let's
Okay.
do it.
All right, you're tuning to Pandora's Awareness Podcast, a place where we collect stories and circulate life-changing wisdom. And today, you got some wisdom from the amazing Nikki and AK. I won't mess with her name, so she want she have to come give me a. She said she's a very good shot. That's what you said earlier, right? I'm not gonna mess with your name, Nikki. I mean AK. So, with that, folks, make it an awesome day.